Cool. So, yeah, thanks ever so much for joining today's session. Just share my screen with you. So I've prepared some slides. So this is the beginning of a new series of talks that I'm going to be running every fortnight. Um, the series is called From Talk to Action. And today we're going to be talking about moving beyond the fear of talking about EDI, or quality, diversity and inclusion. And the mission for these series is quite simple. It's to really help leaders take practical steps to treat people fairly and build a sense of belonging, but to create a workplace where everyone can do their best so teams can perform better together. So that's why we're here this morning, and that's why we'll be reconvening every fortnight. We'll have a different topic every fortnight as well. So the I've just got some kind of house rules for these sessions. So this isn't a sales webinar or anything like that. So just please refrain from sort of selling anything. We're here to learn and support one another, and to create like a support network. We are recording the sessions so that people who signed up but are unable to join us here in person can catch up afterwards. So just please be mindful of that. Don't share anything that's commercially sensitive from your organization, because it will be recorded. There's only a small group, so if you do have any questions as we go, please just unmute yourself and ask as we go, and I can answer your question. It's okay to get things wrong. We're here to learn. I work in EDI every day of the week, and I still put my foot in it. So, it's okay to ask those questions that you don't feel comfortable asking, because we're here to learn. Please just be respectful of one another. Just listen to understand, and then join for as long as you can. If you need to drop off to attend another meeting, that's totally fine. Something I will be introducing to help support these series is an online hub where you can access the recordings and connect with one another. So just keep an eye out for that hub that will be coming out very soon. So today's running order is, first of all, if you could just introduce yourself. So we got Lucy and Claire and Paul. Can you just unmute yourself and let us know who you are and where you work and what you do? Maybe Lucy, could I come to you first?
Of course, thank you, Toby. So my name's Lucy Ferguson. I work for Exodus, and I am one of our HR business partners who currently look after our employees in the US and then also the business support functions in the UK.
Cool, thank you.
Thank
And
you.
Claire, don't know if you're driving. You might be driving, so you might not be able to speak.
Sorry. Yeah, I am driving, but I can.
Your signals, Claire, your signal's really bad, actually. Yeah, sorry, Claire. And Paul, could you introduce yourself?
Okay, my name is Paul. I work with Mildon. Okay, is she speaking? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
My name is Paul. I work with $1 million Sprint. I work as a marketing exec with Toby.
Brilliant. Cool. Thank you, Paul. Thanks. So yeah, the running order today will be sorry, Claire, your signal's really bad. Okay, I think we've lost Claire. Hopefully she'll rejoin us. So yeah, so today's topic I'll go through some key content from today's topic. We'll then have sort of a chat and a Q&A, and then I'll just give you details of the next session right at the end. So diving straight into the content, I think one thing that we need to, when we're liaising with senior leaders, is to kind of consider what's going on for them in their psyche or their psychology. This is kind of oversimplifying the senior leadership brain. So apologies if anyone listening is a qualified occupational psychologist. I apologize for oversimplifying things here. But when we are talking to senior leaders about EDI, it's worth kind of bearing in mind where they're coming from in terms of, are they somebody who thinks about EDI in a very kind of logical, rational sense? Or are they more connected to the emotional, human story side of EDI? Because if they are more of the logical, rational type, they are going to be interested in data and evidence, for example. So they will say things like, what is the business case of EDI? What are the metrics in the organization to show that we are inclusive or not, or who's being particularly impacted by what's going on in the business? So they think very kind of logically and rationally about it. Hey, Claire, welcome back. So they think very logically and rationally about it, and they're interested in data and evidence. Whereas somebody who's more emotionally connected with EDI, they're more interested in the human story. So they might be interested in how people are feeling at the end of a working day. Do they feel like they have a sense of belonging to the organization? Do they feel like they're part of the business? But something that everybody has is this kind of what I call the big red dot in the middle. And this is where things like fear exists. When I talk to senior leaders, I think this is probably like the number one thing that comes up a lot is the fear. Senior leaders are really worried about saying the wrong thing. They don't want to put their foot in it. They don't want to cause offense. And they're worried that, they're worried about cancel culture. They're worried that if they do make a mistake, that it's going to backfire on them in a really bad, disastrous, negative way. So rather than lean into having difficult or awkward conversations, they veer away from having those difficult or awkward conversations. So fear is probably like the number one thing, and that's really the topic of today's conversation. But also within this big red dot, we've also got things like, this is where our implicit biases sit. As human beings, we have a whole set of unconscious biases. They are informed by the culture and the society in which we've grown up in. They are informed, but simply just by the way that our brains are designed and wired. And then also, I come across quite a lot with senior leaders, imposter syndrome. A lot of senior leaders have said to me in the past, but yes, yes, I believe in diversity and inclusion, but who am I as a straight white bloke, for example, to talk about LGBT matters within the workplace? Or who am I as somebody who doesn't have a disability to talk about disability inclusion within the workplace? So this is the kind of stuff that's really niggling away at the back of people's minds in this kind of big red dot. So the reason why I'm showing you this graphic or this model is that when we're talking about EDI, we need to know, I suppose we need to know our audience, we need to meet them where they're at, and we need to be able to talk their language. So if you're talking to a senior leader who's more on the left-hand side, then you know that you need to go to them with kind of a rational argument with data and evidence and things like that. Now, when we are building inclusive, high-performing teams, another framework that I find quite useful that we can look at is created by Patrick Lencioni in the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and his book is of the same name, and it's a really good read. And the bottom 2 levels of his pyramid are really important for creating inclusive cultures in your organization, because what he says is that high-performing teams are built on this foundation level of trust. And so if you develop trust within your organization, if you really focus on creating psychological safety, and what I mean by that is people's ability to feel like they can speak up without any fear of backlash or retribution, then you end up creating this openness culturally within the organization. If you don't have that foundation of trust, then you end up with a culture of guardedness. People don't open up, they don't share their concerns or ideas with you. And that's bad for business because that can lead to mistakes being made, which can be catastrophic. So months ago, actually, I was speaking to a head of HR who worked for a company that manufactured parts for airplanes. And we were talking about this framework, and I said to her, why is trust important for you and your company? And she said, well, you know, we operate factories all over the world. We manufacture parts that go on airplanes. If somebody feels in one of our factories that they can't speak up if they feel like something's going wrong or there's a fault with a part, then that could lead to a faulty part being fitted to an aeroplane, and we could have aeroplanes dropping out of the sky. So for her, that's why trust was really important in their organization. The next level up is also really important for us from an EDI perspective, and this is about having candidness within teams and being able to resolve conflict in a healthy way and not avoid conflict or not avoid having those difficult, awkward conversations. So low performing teams will want to just brush things under the carpet. They'll want to avoid having those difficult, awkward conversations. And that builds resentment within teams, and you start to get this kind of like back chat going on, or this kind of like politicization with a small p. The office politics are quite rife. So that's kind of like the negative side, but we have to have this candor going on. And what I mean by candor is really informed by one of my favorite books, Radical Candor, by Kim Scott, who's an ex-Googler. And I highly recommend reading her book. And what she says in Radical Candor is that this is where managers have conversations where they care deeply about the person that they're communicating with, but they're also very direct. If they're not being radically candid with somebody, they're either not showing care or they're not being direct with you. And one of my favorite ones that I like, she talks about, it's escaped my mind now, but it's something that I'm guilty of doing quite a lot, where I care, but I'm not direct with somebody. And the example that she gives is, imagine that you're in your office and you notice a colleague leaving the bathroom, and behind them they're trailing a piece of toilet tissue paper that they've got stuck to the bottom of their shoe. But you avoid going over to them and telling them that they've got toilet paper stuck to the bottom of their shoe because you don't want to embarrass them. She says that's an example of you're caring because you feel for them and their embarrassment trailing toilet paper through the office, but you're not being direct with them. So actually you're allowing them to perhaps become embarrassed by that situation later on. So candidness is really important. I'm not going to focus on the top 3 levels of the pyramid. That's something that we can cover in one of our future sessions. But when it comes to building a culture of inclusion in your organization, the bottom 2, trust and conflict, are really, really important. Now, another framework that I like to work with is created by a partner organization that we work with called Talergy, that do a lot of assessments throughout the whole employee life cycle. And one of their assessments, it looks at inclusive leadership behaviors. And they have developed 6 inclusive leadership behaviors. It was born out of a project that they did with the Metropolitan Police a few years ago, where the Met Police asked them to help look at manager behaviors and how they could become an anti-racist organization. And they identified 6 critical behaviors to managers behaving in an inclusive way. Now, I'm not going to go through all 6 behaviors because that would be a topic for another webinar, which we will get around to doing. But I'm going to highlight the ones in red because these are really important about overcoming this fear that senior leaders have about talking about EDI. So first of all, empathy. empathy for me is really about taking the time to create the space where you can connect deeply with your colleague to really understand what their lived experience is and where they're coming from. So if you are worried or fearful about having a conversation, it's actually about moving past that fear, feeling the fear and doing it anyway. That's the title of another great book. But it's about asking those questions, those open-ended, empathic questions like, tell me more about that. Can you tell me about what it's like to walk in your shoes or spend a day in your life? You know, what really creating that space to really understand somebody else's perspective and where they're coming from. Empathy is not about sympathy. It's not about saying things like, I feel really sorry for you. I think I know where you're coming from because I've been in a similar situation, because all you're doing there is just projecting or transferring your own experiences onto the other person. It's about asking those nice, open-ended, gentle coaching-like questions to really understand what somebody else's perspective or lived experience is. And that's what empathy is about. Interestingly, empathy is really, really important skill for managers. And I interviewed somebody called Dr. Tara Van Bommel on my podcast. It was around about the height of the pandemic. And Dr. Tara works for an organization called Catalyst that does lots of research into gender equality. And she did some research with her colleagues and around the time of the pandemic, and it was just after George Floyd was murdered in America. It was also the height of the pandemic. And she was really interested in how organizations were responding to these situations. And the research concluded that senior leaders had to be really authentic in the way that they responded. So authenticity was key. But the number one skill that she highlighted that managers needed to have was empathy. So empathy is a really important skill in developing in your leaders. Hey, Kate, welcome to the session. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully you can hear me. Cool, thumbs up, great. Thank you, cool. The next skill highlighted in red is learning orientation. So this, when it comes to the fear of senior leaders with a high degree of learning orientation, they take time out of their day to learn. So they will listen to podcasts, they will read books, they will take time to read materials that are written by or produced by people who are different to themselves. So they will, they will take time to read a blog post written by, say, a Black colleague who talks about their day-to-day lived experience of racism within the workplace. They will listen to a podcast, perhaps by a transgender person, talking about what it's like to be a transgender individual, and what's going on for transgender folk at the moment, given the High Court ruling, etc. So they've got a very big sort of learning orientation where they take time out of their day to learn materials, read things, watch videos, listen to podcasts and things like that, to really understand where people are coming from, different lived experiences and perspectives, and help them move beyond that fear in a very private manner as well, because that's something you can listen to a podcast on your drive to work, or you can read a blog post article on the train to work, that kind of thing. And then finally, composure is really good. So with composure, the inclusive leaders, when it comes to fear, even though they might be feeling the fear internally, even though they might be really anxious about having that difficult or awkward conversation with somebody, even though they're feeling that anxiety on the inside, it doesn't necessarily show on the outside. So they have a high degree of composure, and they come across as being in charge of, or being able to regulate their emotions. Somebody with a low degree of composure is very reactive to their emotions. They don't tend to own it. And what that can sometimes mean, and what I've heard from other people say, is that it's very difficult being around individuals that might have a low degree of composure, because it's almost like you're walking on eggshells around them. You're not sure how they're going to react to a given situation or scenario. Whereas if somebody with a high degree of composure, you're able to have a bit more confidence that they're going to be able to keep calm and collected, and when the heat gets turned up, or when they're having difficult or awkward conversations. So I've just covered half of the 6 behaviours. In future sessions, I'm sure we'll get round to covering the other 3, because this is a really important framework around inclusive leadership behaviours that's useful for being able to benchmark your leaders against these behaviours. But it's the small things that actually make a big difference. We don't need to re-engineer lots of business processes to make things inclusive. So what we can do as an individual is to understand what privilege we have, what gifts we have in any given situation, so that we can open the door for other people. My personal example is like, yes, I was born with a neuromuscular disability, and I've been a wheelchair user all of my life. But I was also born in the UK, which meant that I had access to free healthcare. I've had access to education. I've got access to social care support. That has enabled me to go off to university and get a degree and work for really great organizations like British Airways and Accenture and the BBC and Deloitte before setting up my own company. But if I compare that to a colleague of mine who's got the same disability as me, he grew up in South Africa, but he wasn't able to complete his school education. He didn't have the same level of access to healthcare that I've had. So I need to just check in with myself and recognize the level of privilege that I do have, and then use that to be able to kind of help other people and open other doors for other people. Senior leaders need to be able to role model vulnerability, because talking about EDI, it can be difficult and awkward. So senior leaders need to just put their kind of neck on the line and say, actually, I don't know all the answers. I might get things wrong here. Apologies if I do get things wrong. I'm here to learn and grow. And that demonstrating that vulnerability is a really key skill. And also senior leaders can go a long way at being able to encourage people to speak up, create that psychological safety or that trust that I talked about, create those brave and safe spaces. And then also share your personal, if somebody does share their personal experiences with you, just, thank them, say thank you for sharing that with me. I appreciate that might have been difficult to share with me. What can I do to support you? So those are just some kind of hints and tips. We are a small group today, so I'm not going to open up a breakout group so we can do it together. But I just want to open it up for you, sort of a quick 5-minute conversation. What is one action that your organization has taken, or that you've personally taken, that you feel has helped build trust, fairness, or inclusion in your team? And why do you think it's worked? So just unmute yourself and share your thoughts with the group. Hey, Kate.
Hi. Sorry
Hiya.
for the late arrival.
That's all right. Don't worry. Don't worry. Have you got any thoughts, Kate, on this question?
I'm fairly new to my role, and I'm a team of one with my line manager.
Yeah.
So I would say, in terms of sort of building those elements in a team, I'm sort of limited. But what I would say is that I've been fortunate enough to work with my line manager, who's the executive director for people, and we are building EDI from scratch in our organization. And I think that the feedback we've had so far is by introducing EDI, and I know that's a massive thing to say we're introducing.
Yeah.
It's not a small thing that's affecting a team, and we've got a long road ahead of us, because we've got a lot of sort of naysayers and resistance. But
Yeah.
that small number of people that have already been in touch, the fact that we're standing up for them and saying we are listening, what can we do and how can we get this right first time, has made a massive impact. And I'm hoping
Yes.
that through the power of conversation, those people who have been positively influenced by this, conception of EDI within our organisation, I'm hoping that that's going to grow, and through that we will build that trust. People will see that we're standing up for fairness, alongside our policies to do with fairness at work and disciplinary and all of that. But it's that bit about inclusion and belonging, and that helps to build the trust and the fairness. So, as I say, a long way to go, but that's where we're starting at.
Yeah. That's a great place to start. I think you've definitely started on the right note there, and you can only build on that. Yeah, brilliant. Nice.
I'm thrilled to be part of this network, and as I said to you, Toby, on LinkedIn yesterday, and joining that other session. I'm a very interested party in EDI, but sort of lacking on the actual experience. So I'm looking at this as an opportunity to connect with really experienced people who can say, we've done this works really well, or hang on, let's talk about that idea, because you might make a few boo-boos. So I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
You're definitely in the right place to connect with people. Yeah, great. Thanks, Kate. Thank you. Anyone else? Lucy or Claire, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, so psychological safety is something that Exodus is really focused on. And one of the things that we have introduced within initially our HR sort of team in our wider HR meetings is it's a weather report. And everybody is encouraged to come and say, 2 or 3 words which describe how you're feeling. And this can be a mix of both personal, if you're having a fantastic personal, life, and then you can come and you can say that. And sometimes that can be met with maybe not having such a good time at work. And we really encourage individuals to be open and honest. We've been doing this now for, I would say, 6 to 9 months. And to start with, individuals come in and they say, everything's fine, everything's fantastic. But the more that we ask, and the more that this is driven from, leadership down. So we have the most senior individuals within the team being very open and honest. And that encourages the more junior members of the team to also, be open and honest. And I can see that really building the psychological safety within the team, but also the trust between the team members as well.
I love that idea, the weather report. I mean, is it literally like, I'm feeling, there's a thunderstorm versus it's nice, hot and sunny?
Yes.
I'm going to pinch that idea, because every Friday, Brooklyn and I check in with each other about our well-being and level of stress for the week.
Yes.
And we just do it on like a scale of 1 to 10. But if we do like, oh, this week has been a nice sunny week, or it's been a thunderstorm week or something, I love that idea. And it does build that psychological safety, especially if you've got senior leaders saying, you know what, this week's been a thunderstorm for these reasons. And that because they're demonstrating that vulnerability, they're able to say, I've really struggled this week because of X, Y, Z. And that's really good at building that level of trust at the bottom of Patrick Lencioni's model.
Yeah.
So I think that's bloody amazing. I love that idea, Lucy. Yeah, cool. Thanks. I don't know if you
Excellent,
are
thank you.
able to communicate if you wanted to add anything, or maybe Kate, is there anything further from you?
No, I've just written down the weather report. I absolutely love that, Lucy. Thank you for sharing. You need to trademark or copyright that.
Yeah.
Feel free to use it.
Thank you.
It's a great tool.
Cool. Brilliant. Excellent. I think yeah, you've covered on some really great things. I think what Kate was saying right at the beginning is really important. It's about listening is really important. I would say that if you do listening exercises, it's very easy to break trust. I know it's a bit of a cliche. It takes a long time to build trust, and it doesn't take a lot to break trust. So if you do listening exercises with your employees, make sure that you've got like that feedback loop, the kind of you said, we did feedback loop, because if what I suppose the trap that you don't want to fall into is further down the line, employees coming to you saying, we shared these concerns with you, but nothing's happened. Nothing's changed in the organization. It's fallen on deaf ears. So just make sure that you've got that feedback loop in place. That's my only kind of highlight or experience I've had. Cool. So that's really good. So I'll skip over that. So one thing I would like to do with you or offer you is I can do an inclusion checkup. Now, what I mean by this is it's a 30-minute or 45-minute phone call with me where I will review your careers page, if you've got it on your website, to talk about how you're talking about EDI. If you don't have a careers page, it doesn't matter. We can talk about what you can do instead. If you do have a careers page, but you don't talk about EDI, again, it doesn't matter because we can talk about what opportunity there is to start talking about EDI. If you do have a careers page and you do talk about EDI, brilliant. It's something that I can review. But this is something I'd like to offer you. It's completely free of charge. It's a review of your careers website. What I'll do is in the chat box, I will just drop a link to my calendar. So you can just click on the link and then you can just book time in my calendar. I'll just show you what happens if you do that. So if you click on the calendar, you go to a page that looks like this. You can pick a time, let's say next Wednesday. That's probably a bad day. Next Thursday, 2:30 in the afternoon. Click that. You then just put in your details like your name, email address. What's really important is the link to your organization's careers page or about us page, so that I can actually look at it before the meeting. There's just some coaching like questions at the bottom as well, just so that I can come prepared to the meeting. And then once you've done that, give me your phone number in case there's any problems on the day. You just click the button at the bottom, schedule event, and then it'll basically go in both of our calendars. So it's like dead easy to do. So if you are interested in me doing a review of your careers page from an EDI perspective, like what you're telling the market, whether you're doing so in an authentic, genuine voice, that's something I would love to be able to do with you. So there's that. Now, before we close off today's call, this is an opportunity to ask me anything. Do you have any questions that you would like to ask me about any of today's content?
Toby, are you going to send the slides through or any kind of resource afterwards? I apologise because I know it's my fault for not being able to come at 9.
No, it's fine. Yeah, so we are recording it, so I can make the recording available. I'm happy to send you the slides, Kate. At the beginning of the meeting, I was just saying what I would like to do is create like an online hub where everything will get stored. Haven't quite got round to it, so it is on my to-do list. But I will create a hub where people can, get the back catalogue of these sessions, because I'm running these sessions every fortnight, a different topic every fortnight. But sorry, the short answer is yes, I will make it available to you. And anyone who wasn't able to join us live today will be able to get access to the recording so that they can catch up in their own time. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Cool.
Thank you.
That's all right.
No
Great.
question from me, Toby, but I'd just like to say thank you very much. I always find your sessions really useful. They're fantastic. So
Brilliant.
thank you very much. Appreciate
you.
it.
That's all right. Very happy to help. So on the topic of next fortnight, so in 2 weeks' time, our next topic is called Equity First, Why Treating Everyone the Same Isn't Fair. So that's our next topic in 2 weeks' time. So I think we'll leave it there. Hopefully that's been useful. If you are watching on catch up, then hopefully you found this useful as well. And I look forward to seeing you on the next topic. Thanks very much.